Okay, everybody, welcome to the podcast playground where podcasters come to play. Our today's guest is Pastor Henry. Pastor Henry, tell them a little bit about yourself.
Hey, nice to meet you all. Thanks for having me, buddy. We tried it a few days ago and we rescheduled due to some technical issues, but it's a pleasure to be back on. My name is Henry Nwaneri. I come from Nigeria. Um, uh, I studied history and admin, my first degree, and I was doing law and diplomacy in my master's when God called me into ministry full time. And so I dedicated myself to the things that I felt God had laid on my heart to do. And then I moved to Canada in 2003 and became a citizen about 7 years later. Planted a church in Canada in 2014, which grew to quite a number, a good size. And then in 2017, God led me to begin to plant other branches. So we planted other branches around the world. We're managing about 8 of them now. And then I happen to be an author. I've authored about 40 books. I like writing and I like putting a lot of my thoughts, I like putting them into writing. Um, and I also run a podcast. It's called Vantage Point with Pastor Henry. I think that's pretty much about me.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about me. You know, like I was saying to you yesterday before we were having technical issues, my background started out as a business owner of a janitorial service. Did that from from a young kid. My grandparents had it first, and then when they passed on, I kind of picked up and started my own, ran it all the way to 2014, turned around, sold it, got into custom cars and refurbishing them and painting them and selling them. Moved from that, fast forward a little bit further, moved into IT, where I end up moving up the ladder really fast at the company that I'm with now. And then I got into broadcasting and got into producing podcasts and shooting commercials on the side. So,
Mm.
that's a little bit about my background. And, right now I produce two podcasts, Two Sailors and a Drink, which are retired two military fellas. And I produce another one called Endless Topics, which is two gentlemen, different backgrounds, both equally wonderful people. And their podcast seems to be doing well. And so is the other one as well. So, that's
Very
just the
good.
journey in starting the podcast, you know, because most people don't start a podcast where we're at when we started ours, because I have a whole production studio here at my house, whereas most
Mm.
people start with a cell phone or they start with one of those little blink cameras, because you can start a podcast with almost anything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you kind of want to tell them a little bit about how you got started with your podcast and your ministry with it.
Um, yeah. So what happened was 2017 was when I started. Um, in the beginning of my operations in Canada, I was usually this is what happens. I was overwhelmed or I was engrossed in the responsibilities of pastoring the church. And, I just wanted to pastor my church and I wanted it to grow. I wanted the people to be, vibrant and all of that. But what happens, it gets to a time that you begin to see beyond the walls of the church. So just before COVID, I began to feel the nudging of the Lord that He was going to push me beyond the walls of the church. And the first thing He asked me to do was to start doing Facebook Lives. So I started doing Facebook Lives, and then COVID came, of course, and that just meant a lot of the things I wanted to say to a larger crowd, I could now say it with what I was doing in Facebook Live. And then in 2018, I decided just instead of Facebook Lives, I was going to do um, podcasting, and so I registered my podcast and did some research on what I was supposed to do, and just started off like that. I picked up from a lot of avenues what I wanted to do. The name was the first thing that came to me, because I wanted it to be Vantage Point, and there was a specific reason, there was a vision God had showed me why it should be called Vantage Point, and of course, it had to suit my calling, my ministry, and my personality. So that's how I started.
Okay, okay, I like that because to come up with the name, it took me. I got ADHD. I started out in one letter of the alphabet. Next thing you know, I was at the Z's, and I still hadn't found the name. My ADHD had me bouncing around here like a basketball. And then finally, I landed on the playground, and I was like, you know what? That's where everybody comes to play. So
Mm,
that's kind of how I ended up with this name.
mm. Yeah,
But
the name, sometimes it comes easy, sometimes it's difficult, because especially if you are borderline overthinker, or borderline perfectionist, those personalities always run into, and it's not a negative thing, but they run into a quagmire when they want to adopt a name, because it literally has to check every box. It has to check the catchy box. It has to check the smart box. It has to check the universal box. It has to check the specific box. There's a lot of boxes that it has to check, because that's where you get your satisfaction. And most times people pick a name, and after a few days they have to change the name because all of a sudden, oh, it's not as catchy as this other one I just saw, so I want to change my name. You see another one's podcast, it's called the Drunk Fox, or something like that, and then you say, oh, that's a good one. How about if I call my own the Angry Cat or something like, so every once every once in a while,
yeah, I see exactly what you're talking about.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, but
Yeah,
mine
because
is Vantage Point. I knew it was going to be Vantage Point, and I've not had a second thought about it. It's a long name. The full name is long. So, but one of the things I do about names, it's got to inspire me to do what I want to do, but it's got to remind me what I wanted to do from beginning. So the name is important to me. When I say Vantage Point with Pastor Henry, it inspires me, it keeps me in check to go in the path that I should go, but it reminds me why God gave me the venture of a podcast, and you know at some point you're going to have to make the decision what is more important for you with whatever you do, and that's what I did with podcasting. And there'll be a lot of challenges. Everybody will face those challenges like you were saying earlier on, but you just have to figure it out and keep going.
yeah, and you're definitely right because you do face a lot of challenges because like I said, like yesterday, I had everything envisioned how I thought it was going to go yesterday, but then there was other plans, like the line going bad. So, like I said before, you have to be able to pivot and hope that those who are willing to work with you so you can push forward. Every interview you do or every person you come across, you have to realize that they face challenges, you face challenges, and you have to push through it and keep going. You can't say, oh, I did a bad podcast or this didn't go the way I wanted it to go, and then you don't do it again. You have to actually work through it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, with podcasting, I learned a lot, running it, and I'm still learning a lot running it. And I actually just began what I would call just registered a business here in Canada that would help people with a lot of things, including podcasting. But I want to limit it to some niche of people. But um, one of the things I do is we call it hold my hand, and basically what it is there's a lot of people who are in different stages of their journey in starting a podcast or running a podcast, and what I love doing is I have a team that will help you, because sometimes the challenge is in one area, sometimes it's in picking the name, sometimes it's in which platform do I use, how do I set it up, what time do I do it, who is my niche, who is my target audience, and then how do I create content, and so it can be overwhelming for some people. I actually just started, and the website is just almost done. We just have a few things, to run, some apps on the website, and a few things that we want to do, to be able to help people. But it's a difficult thing, you know, um, to anything in life, anything worth doing, is a
It's
challenge to you
difficult.
personally, based on who you are, where you are, and what you want to do. And sometimes that's your challenge. That's what God wants you to do. That's what God wants you to overcome, to be able to fulfill your dreams. And so I hope we'll get to talk about some of the challenges people face and how they can overcome it, and stuff like that. But everybody faces it.
Yeah, and you're right, they do, because like my podcast with Two Sail and a Drink, we talked about it for almost 2 years before we even made the first episode.
Well,
It was, we're going to do a podcast. We're going to do a podcast. And like I said, we talked about it 2 years. Now, mind you, we got the equipment because I own the equipment. So we have the equipment,
mm,
but we were just in the let's talk about it phase. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. And then I told him, I said, look, it's 2025. Either we going to do it or we going to stop talking about it.
yeah,
So, you can only keep things in a planning phase before you actually come to light with it and make it a reality. And sometimes you have to say, hey, look, is this going to be a reality or not? You can't be afraid of failure because success only comes from failure. You have to fail in order to
absolutely,
succeed sometimes.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely,
So if you
absolutely.
believe in whatever you're doing, whether it's podcasting, whether it's building a house, whatever you do, if you believe enough in it and you focus, you'll get it done. If you don't,
Mm,
it'll still be
mm,
in the planning phases.
mm, mm.
So that's
What
kind
I
of how
like,
we got started.
yeah, yeah. What I like telling people is, um, and I'm a pastor, so it's easy for me to speak to people in my cliches, or speak to them in my lingo, or in the lingo that Christians find easy to understand. But beyond the walls of Christian church, um, some of the factors or some of these points remain the same. For instance, um, you've got to find your reason. What is the reason for your podcast? What is the reason you want to podcast? Is it because it's, you've got to find what it is, and you've got to find the first, second, and third reason, so that you know you need to always have a fallback and a fallback, and it's difficult to fall three times and and not be able to get up. By the time you fall once, you're conscious. The second fall, you wake up, that kind of a thing. So have, put and kind of think it through and put it in that order. For me, the first important thing for me was my voice. I wanted my voice out there. That was the first important thing I wanted. So sometimes, the reason is you want to reach a larger crowd. You want to sell yourself or sell a book, or whatever. But I just wanted my voice. I wanted, you pardon me, I'm going to give you an illustration from the scriptures. One of the scriptures God used to encourage me about podcasting was, John the Baptist. The Bible says in John chapter 10 that before John, there was nobody greater than John. John was the greatest one to live. That's what the Bible says. But the funny thing about John was that when he was called and told to preach, he was called and sent to the wilderness to go preach. And the Bible says he called himself a voice in the wilderness. The Bible calls him two or three times a voice in the wilderness. And if you think about it, what is a voice doing in the wilderness? Why would you live in a city, you're John, you hail from Nazareth, but then when you get up and it's time to preach, you run into the wilderness and start preaching. Who is going to hear you in the wilderness? But the funny thing is that people still gathered. People went to him in the wilderness to be baptized. So there were two lessons for me to learn from that. Number one, your voice does not need the audience, but your voice will attract the audience. That's two things you need to say. Some of us find healing talking. And that's one of the things you don't know that podcast does for a lot of people. It enables you. Not energizes you. It affirms you. It affirms who you are. It recognizes you, gives you, um, um, authority because you become bold to talk about what you're talking about. And that for me, that was the first thing, my voice, um, and the funny thing about it is this, that people will come back to your voice 10 years from now, 20 years from now. They'll come back and hear what you said, but people may not find your personality. So those are the two things. You can have you can only sell your personality in your dispensation, in your generation, in your time, but your voice will go beyond um, your time.
Oh, M. Michelle said that are trying to help people.
I think she's asking the question whether we're trying to help people. Yes, I was saying that I just started an organization that I want to help people. I call it "Hold My Hand," so I can. And the money is not the. I'm not interested in the money. You can go and look at the website. It's not finished. It's not ready, but you'll see the things there are ridiculously. It's cheaper than Fiverr. It's cheaper than any of the gigs outline websites you can find. The reason is not because we want to make money. The reason is because I want to make it affordable for people, because one of the 5 top challenges anybody will face in setting up a podcast is the financial part of it. And I know people. My brother here will testify to you. I know people who, when they want to start their podcast, just because they drop 20,000, 30,000 to set up a studio and buy equipment, the A grade equipment. And the tendency is that you are not there, to invest 20,000, 10,000, or even 1,000 or $500 to invest it in a podcast, and that cripples you. That's the point I was making. That cripples you. And so I want to help people, especially people that are godly, are Christians. I want to help you because it's important that we can't be preaching healing without taking actions that help people heal. Like, I believe if you can talk and God gives you a voice, you find a place where you can go and talk. I know a lady who is very shy. Invite her in front of the pulpit, or say, just come and share your testimony, and hold the microphone for her. She'll be shaking and she'll be red. White lady, married with 4 kids, she'll be shaking and, oh, Pastor, please don't do this to me, and all of that. But then we set her up to do a podcast, and her favorite place of doing her podcast, and she has a YouTube channel, you won't believe it, that has more followers than mine, and I was the one that helped her, and all she does on her is just sit. She goes to her car, turns the car on, put the AC on, and then put the phone in front of her and records herself talking for 10 minutes, struggling with self-esteem. And then she goes and posts it on Facebook and on YouTube, and it gathers like 10,000 views in 3 months or 4 months. And I am there not doing that much, but that's the thing, and it empowers her, and she finishes and she comes back, and I listen to it sometimes, and I'm shocked that just how grown up she has become when she does her podcasting. That's why I said find your voice. It makes you an authority, brings you a level of healing, and from there now she's finding boldness in so many other areas of her life. That's one of the visions I had with remagigs.com, in case you want to visit it. It's not yet ready, but you will see everything is almost there. We want to help Christians, want to help people with very simple things about starting your podcast with knowledge. Knowledge can set you free. The Bible says in John 8, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. A lot of people are stuck, and the only one step out is knowledge. Somebody gives you an information that just breaks the chains that have held you bound, and before you know it, there's ideas, there's ways you can, it's like in the Bible in Genesis 21, Hagar gave up. She said, I'm tired, I'm going to die. And she put the child and said, I don't want to hear the child cry and die. And an angel appeared to her and said, hey, the child is going to be great tomorrow. There's a well of water just half a mile down this way. That information changed everything. And Hagar, nurtured her boy, who became a prince and became the father of Middle Eastern countries now. Wealth and everything that they have. She almost gave up. So just one information changed everything. Those of us that
Well,
have done this a few. Yeah, go ahead,
well, you
brother.
know that it's a confidence builder too, because you put shy people in front of the phone, they can produce all day long because they feel like they control it. Once they post it, then they get they get that gratification that other
Yeah.
people like what
Yeah.
they're doing. So then it changes their personality to let them know that, hey, look, I'm not out here by myself.
Mm.
So now they want to do it more. And
Absolutely.
then
Absolutely.
they find that target audience that loves what they do, because I got a niece every day or every 2 days. She's on TikTok and she's posting herself making breakfast for the kids, or she's posting herself driving to Target. And I'm like, those are just daily tasks. They're not that interesting, but they're interesting to her. And apparently they're interesting to almost 2,000 followers
Wow, look at
because
that.
somebody can relate with it. So
Yeah.
that's what her niche is. And I was talking to her on the phone, and she's starting to get paid now from that, just doing what she's doing. She's starting to get a
Hmm.
check from it now. So she sees no reason to stop it. And like I told her, I said, if you're getting a check from it and you started doing that, then keep it up. You know, you
Absolutely.
found where you needed
Absolutely.
to be. And starting a podcast is the
Absolutely.
same way. You know, you don't need $1 million setup. You don't need a $400 setup. You got your setup right there every day with you. When you
Yeah.
answer the phone, that's your setup right there. Put it on a tripod, turn it around towards yourself, go ahead and film yourself. You, like you said, the young lady would go sit in her car and she would have those 10 minutes in her car and she would record herself and go post it right there. That's your podcast.
That's it.
That's your
That's it right
podcast.
there.
That's your
Yeah.
TikTok. That's your whole, that's everything.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So it's definitely a confidence
Absolutely.
booster. And I think the main question that I see sometimes people ask is, what service do I need? Or what streaming platform should I use? What microphone should I buy? You know, at the end of the day, you can try different things. It's okay. You don't, they got microphones out there for $15. They got them all the way up to $600 and beyond.
Yeah. Yeah.
You buy what you feel comfortable with and what you have the ability to use, and then you work for it from there.
Yeah. Yeah. I find
And
that
realize that the followers. Oh, go ahead, Pastor. I'm sorry.
oh, sorry. I was just going to say there's a proverb in my country. It says, the person who asks questions doesn't get lost, you know. Um, and one of the things that's taught me is, if you ask for direction early, you don't waste gas and time, you know. So sometimes, and I'm not saying you must, you know, one of the, sometimes I challenge myself to try and remember the route, you know, without asking for direction again, you know. And I've grown to the point where I can go anywhere the first time, you know, being led, and then go the second time without any direction. I don't need GPS, you know. I don't turn the GPS on in the car, you know, driving through anywhere in town or going whenever I travel. But the proverb is, you know, ask for direction early and you wouldn't waste time roaming about. And sometimes, because we don't ask, we don't receive. Because we don't ask, we don't learn. Because we don't ask, we don't discover. You know, instruction, revelation, direction. Those three things: instruction, revelation, and direction. Um, um, if you take the initials, you can call it READ, RID. You know, revelation, instruction, and direction. Um, uh, come from asking. Your questions will release these three things to you. It will release revelation, it will release instruction, it will release direction for you. And it can just set you free from being stuck, it can set you free from fear and intimidation, it can set you free from mental block, it can set you free from mediocrity and limitations that you put on yourself. You know, if you ask questions, you'll get answers. Just know that. Just the question you may ask is, who do I ask? So here's how you learn who to ask. Learn to start asking people that won't cost you until you ask people who will cost you. You know, don't be afraid of asking those who will cost you. And because of that, you don't ask people who will cost you. There are people that can give you free information. Because you think everybody's going to charge, then you don't ask. And then because you don't ask, then you don't receive. So start from the people who will give you information without charging you. a little help, until you now that you get to a point where you realize there is information I need and I'm willing to pay for it. You understand that once you start attaching value to the information you need, then you're willing to pay for it, because that's what's going to get you to where you're going to go to. But look for cheap ones, look for free ones. Don't be ashamed or afraid of adding free at the end of your search on Google. Whatever you're searching for, just put the word FREE, enter,
At
and
the
then
end of it.
see what it offers you.
Well, because you never know. I mean, like you said, people are afraid to do something because they don't want to be charged for it when they're just
Yeah.
starting. But let me tell you, yesterday, when I was having those troubles, in order to come to the answer for those troubles, I went to another streaming service just to see what was it, this platform, or was it going to be, was it secluded to just this platform, or was it my actual network? So I joined the other platform. It said free. So I joined it, and it gave the same error message that I was getting with this one that when we were trying yesterday. So then I had to start checking out other sources to figure out what the problem was. But had it not been free, I wouldn't have wanted to pay to test the theory.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
from what I'm noticing, I went through 4 different ones yesterday, and all 4 of them said free trial. So if you're truly interested in doing something, look at all these platforms. They all offer a free trial. Try that free trial, and if you like what you're doing, then go out there and show the world. Everybody has a target audience, but you don't know what your
Yeah.
target audience is until you do it.
Absolutely. Very good point.
So I think that is one thing that I've really learned in producing 2 different podcasts, plus now producing my own, that there's a target audience for everything. And with all these groups out here, the one thing I noticed the most is people always asking, what mic do I need? They're asking the basic help questions, but the
Yeah.
people replying aren't replying with actual basic help.
Mm.
So that's why I said, you know what? I'm gonna start the playground, and people at different time frames in their journey, bring them on, talk to them about how they got started, what kind of things did they face, what were their adversities in starting. Was it stumbling through platforms? Was it like me yesterday, stumbling with getting online? How can I help others not go through the things that I had to go through when it was free?
Yeah. 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 I like telling people, there are 4 problems. The first level of issues are going to be divided into 4. And the first one that I like tackling is the personal issues. Your personal problems are the ones that you have to tackle first. If you don't defeat yourself, if you don't defeat your personal problems, you will not be prepared to defeat the other obstacles and hindrances that will come against you. So I like dealing with the personal challenges first. And let me list a few challenges that you're going to face, in setting up a podcast. Number 1, you need to be settled. If you're not settled, you cannot build a consistency to run a good podcast. One of the things about podcasting is just keep loading up videos. Don't get discouraged. Just keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. One day, one person is going to find you and watch all of those videos, no matter how long they are, especially if it's very interesting and it meets their need. So just keep doing it. And consistency comes from settling down. If you don't have a home, you won't have somewhere to settle down to do a podcast. If things are not settled, if you're here but you're not sure you're going to be here, so your things are in boxes, you can't unpack, you can't even create a space for podcasting. Settle down is the first thing you need to do with yourself. And even if you have a home, you still need to be settled. You still need to create a schedule. You can't create a schedule to organize yourself. The link between settling down and organizing yourself is schedule. And I like saying it that way. Bridge your organization to your settlement by scheduling things. Schedule your life, schedule work, schedule cooking, schedule time with the kids, but also schedule time to podcast 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. You know, if you don't settle down and organize yourself, you won't be able to start, and a lot of us have started on so many. That's why we have a lot of what you call um, unfinished projects. You start and
Yep.
stop, and then somebody says something, and then I started, then you go back and pack again, and sometimes you've already boxed up all those things, you're not using it again, and then it's difficult to find the box where you put the microphone, so you go out and buy again. That's the horrible thing about when you're not settled. If your things are in storage and the boxes are stashed on top of each other, you can't find certain clothing, you can't find certain this, you can't find this microphone, you're going to have to buy. And if you buy and then you still don't settle down, you box them, and then you put them away again. There are so many of us that spend so much money in buying things that we already have in storage or somewhere in the basement. Settle down, organize yourself, and then you will find a rhythm that is good for you. You will find the time, because the bridge between settling down and organizing yourself is the bridge of scheduling things. That's creating a format for your organization, creating a format, creating a calendar, a schedule for your organization. And when you do that, give yourself 10, 15 minutes. That's when you will begin to be able to measure your growth. You do it 10, 15 minutes, and then people will say, oh, I think you're using just your phone and no microphone. Why don't you plug a mic? Why don't you find a quiet place? Why don't you get a background? Or you're just doing audio. Why don't you do video? Those level of growth come from people who are settled and organized. That's when you can notice it. AI does that for you now. You can go to the back end and look at analytics of whatever you're doing, because it's organizing it for you. It's settled. It's there. It's working out. Everything you do,
Yeah.
it's there. It's never off duty. That's what it means.
Yeah. Plus, it's some of them things you can't refute, because when you see the stats in the reports that you can go look at, it tells you what percentage of people are looking at what, whether it's uh, male, females, ages 20 to 40,
Yeah.
13 to whatever age. It tells you what your bracket is that you're hitting. So you don't even have to guess that. It's right there in black and white. It tells you how much of the videos somebody's looking at. It tells you whether they're watching your whole video or they're watching so many seconds of it, so many minutes of it. It tells you what's your longest watch video, your
Mm.
most watched video, and the one that they actually watched the longest. Because sometimes you have a lot of viewers, but they're not watching the whole thing. They're only watching a very little bit of it. And if they click on it, that's a view. So that's not what you need to chase. You need to chase the actual completion of people actually
Mm.
watching the whole thing. That's what you chase. But sometimes, it's all about views, which is what, the all the platforms are about. You get so many views, you can't go live till you get 100 followers. You get 60
Yeah.
subscribers, you can go live on certain platforms. So it's just finding that platform, building it, and then going live on it. And you, like you said, you might have 2 followers, you might have 1 subscriber, but keep doing it. Somebody else is going to see it, and then they'll subscribe, and then so on and
Absolutely.
so on and so on. It just depends on, are you willing to keep at it to get to that point? Because success for nobody is built overnight. It's built over time. And success is different for everybody too, because what one person views as success is totally different than what the next person views as success.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't get caught up in having a whole bunch of followers or having a whole bunch of likes. I would get more caught up in the content that you're going to put out, because if you like what you put out, then others will like what you put out as well. And it's just finding that niche for it to hit, so you'll get those people who like what you put out.
Yeah. I find that it's a challenge, an obstacle, and then a discouragement. If you look at um, um, how many followers you have. For instance, as an author, I belong to a few author groups on Facebook, and one of the biggest complaint I always have is I've written a book, and I've made only one or two sales, and so there are two things that come that follow that. And this is what I always tell people. The first thing is to set proper expectations. Somehow you expected that you were going to be a multimillionaire bestseller from writing your book. And I'm not saying don't have that kind of expectation. I'd rather have it as a goal, not as an expectation. An expectation is a
Correct.
hope that you haven't worked towards. A goal is a hope you are working towards. Whether you make it or not is different. You're working towards it. Set goals, not expectations. You can be disappointed by goals because you're still pursuing it, but you can be disappointed by expectations because you're waiting for it. So take note of that. And then the other thing is just as a writer, the first book I wrote, I think it took me 2 months before I sold a copy. It took me 2 months. The first book I wrote about 4 years ago, it took me 2 months before I sold a copy. And the funny thing was, I wasn't selling. I wasn't trying to market it. And it's on a topic that I'm very slow to talk about. It's on relationships. And for some reason, I love talking about relationship. I have a very fascinating, in-depth knowledge on relationship. Actually, I just released another new book yesterday. I titled it "Don't Chase Me, Choose Me," and I'm trying to prove
I
that
like that title.
yeah, one of the biggest problems we have in our modern day dating is that we only turn people on when we chase them, and we men are only turned on when we are able to chase women. And sadly, I don't want to go there, but I have an in-depth, a very deep revelation on relationships, but I'm slow to talk about it. So when I wrote the first one, I didn't want to talk about it. But guess what? I had ordered almost 500 copies of it to my house, and I had given out about 10, 20 of it as gifts. And then I was invited to preach somewhere one day, and my eyes were open. Guess what? I took 100 copies, and while I was preaching I love talking about prayer. I mentioned some things on relationships, and then when I was going, I went to the back to pack up whatever books was left. There was none. All 500 copies were gone. All 500 copies were gone. And that opened my eyes. I'd hate to say it that way, but I failed selling online, but I sold in person. And ever since then, I don't travel without my books. I pay for luggages. I take one shirt and one pant, but I make sure I'm carrying a suitcase load of all different books. And most times, if you speak well, you will sell everything. Before, oh wow, he was so good with this, and they just rush. I've seen one person pick one copy of at least 20 different books from my table. I've seen it not once, not twice. And it's fascinating. But it came after years of writing, and sales were slow. And I didn't go the normal route of advertising, and I'm going to do all that. But the instruction when I
Hmm.
started writing was, God said, create a repertoire, a library of your books. Then you will see people rush into it. Same thing with the podcast. Just keep being faithful, and then one day it's going to explode.
Well, I mean, like in my line of work, okay, we do motivational speakers. We have a lot of them come through, and they get books. We have a book club at work, and I noticed that a lot of the motivational speakers come through, and that's the first thing they say: be well spoken,
Yeah,
because well spoken people gravitate to, and if they can gravitate to you, then they want to know what you're talking about because they know you have a journey, and they're more interested in the journey that you're putting out in that book as well as the journey that you took to get that far,
hmm.
which is what podcasting is. It's a book. You're writing a book depending on whatever you're writing it on, whether it's relationships, whether it's on daily topics, monthly topics, weekly topics. It doesn't matter. It could be on politics, whatever it is. If that's your journey and that's what you're writing about, then the people who like that will gravitate to you. You, like you said, don't go statistic watching, don't go getting stuck on getting more followers, because all that stuff comes with time. And everything you
Yeah,
sell online, which is right now the way of the world, doesn't mean that in person it's going to move. But then again, in person, you can go set up a podcast live, and you'll have a group of people who'll be all over it. They'll cheer
Yeah.
you on, and then you'll get a bunch of followers. So it's all kinds of ways that this thing can work. It just depends on the person trying to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very interesting to see, you know, um, because again, basic knowledge, First Corinthians or Second Corinthians chapter 12 says, don't compare yourself with other people. And it's possible, it's very easy to make that kind of mistake. Um, you can learn from others, but don't compare yourself to or with others. Don't compare, because what happens is you put unnecessary, undue pressure on yourself. You should learn to grow at your pace, but learn to be pulled by those who are growing a lot faster. It's one of the most precarious things you will do in life, to balance push and pull. Sometimes pulling can be destructive. It can be exhausting. It can be exhausting in the sense that you're not running at your timed and planned, consciously intentional pace. You're running at somebody else's pace, and it can drain you. But when you're pushing balances with the pulling, then you find an equilibrium of velocity and momentum in things of life that would bring you to the place where you're supposed to go without tiring you out, without draining you. And it's not just energy wise. You could be drained financially, because you want to copy everything you're seeing. If I don't do it like they're doing it, then I'm not that good. And so financially, it's draining. It can drain your time. It can drain even just your intellect, because you're not thinking, um, um, how do I say, individually. You're not thinking independently. You're not thinking, um, um, there's another word I'm looking for, but you're not thinking for yourself. You're thinking, borrowing
You're
somebody
being a
else's personality
you're
to
being a group
think
follower versus an independent thinker, because you
independently.
see
Yes,
the
that's the word.
yeah,
Yes,
you see all the other folks doing it, and you figure, okay, if they did it and it worked for them, I'm gonna do it and it should work for me. But the difference is you're
absolutely.
not them. You're you. So you have to just do whatever idea you come up with, you have to just do it. If somebody likes it, that's cool. If they don't, that was not your thing. That
Hmm.
was not their thing. But if you keep doing it, somebody is going to like it and somebody's going to follow it. So
I was in.
it's all about not knowing, you don't know who your niche is, because your niche is out there on the screen doing whatever they're doing, but they're going to find you. There's enough algorithms out here. There's enough people who click and scroll daily, because I'm an avid scroller. I sit outside of a lot of conferences that the stuff in there is just boring. So while I'm sitting there doing the production work, I'm like, so I go through a whole lot of videos in the course of a 12-hour day.
Understandable.
But at the end of the day, not only am I going through other people's videos, I'm also producing something live right now that could go
Yeah.
global because of what I do at work. That stuff goes global. We send it across the world. Sometimes we have as few as 20 viewers. Sometimes we have 10,000 viewers. It depends on where we're sending it and how many people's watching.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
process for us is the same, because we've been through enough in the last 8 years. I have fell enough to get up and start walking now, to the point where what I do now is second nature. When I come to work, I know we need to pull out the cameras. I know we need to get them tested, check the switcher, check the audio, make sure we got a disc to record it on, check the recording, make sure we can hear it, it's clear, do a test call 2 days prior. The list is endless that we run through as far as a checklist to make sure that we get what they want and we don't have to give an excuse in the end. But I
Hmm.
had to fall a lot to get to that checklist. I didn't just start at that checklist.
Hmm. You know, um, I was in Jamaica in a hotel one day, and there were people under a coconut tree, and usually, they get you coconut fresh, they let it fall down, and the guy cuts it in front of you there, and all of that. So I was watching, and I knew I was going to go out later and get coconut as well, But I was watching people through my window, and they were getting their coconut, and I learned a huge lesson from just watching people, get their coconut. So, you get there, you tell the man you want coconut. He looks at, there's five, six of you. Say, okay, let's look for a tree where they'll find ready ones. And then he goes, and there's a way they shake the coconut, shake it, shake it. You want it directly. There are tables with coconut, but you want the one that falls, right? You kind of the fun in it. So he shakes it, and then a bunch of coconut falls, and then he lets you go pick it. So the funny thing, the lesson I was learning was this: that there was once he shook it for a couple, the thing fell right in front of them. They picked it up, looked at it. Yes, they gave it to him. He started chopping it, and then cut the top off. They drank, put their straws in it, drank it. Then he started. Oh, they had fun. Then he called the second couple. They came, and then he shook the thing. The thing fell down, rolled, and kept on rolling to the water at the beach. And then the fun in it is you go get your coconut. So they started running after the coconut. They got on the beach. Their shoes got sandy. They took off their running shoes and started running, following the coconut to the water. And they grabbed the coconut, came back all the way. It was a simple, fun thing, but I was learning a lesson from it. Then the third couple that went there, the guy said shift. They shifted that way. Then he looked at it. No, come back this way. They came back this way. He shook the coconut. It landed almost on the head of the one guy. And I was just learning from it how far your coconut falls from you, or how close it falls from you, will be different from how it falls for somebody else. But it's your coconut. It is your coconut. Don't say it's not mine because it didn't fall this close. And let me put that in practical terms for you. You can do literally what anybody has done to succeed, and you won't get the same result. Don't let that discourage you. You can invest money, buy this, do this, get these speakers, and you don't go viral. That's one way people measure success these days: going viral. How many people watch your video? There are so many people who put so much smartness, put invest money, do this. I'll give you something. I like producing my work. I think he has a video of my podcast in the back there. I like producing. I did all my video intros. I have amazing skills. I have technicians who do amazing video intros, audio, and everything. Produce my jingles, produce, whatever flyers. Amazing, amazing, amazing. I set it up like a TV channel, technically, because I once had a TV channel, Rema Gospel TV. And then you produce it, and then do something that should be amazing. Then you start waiting for it to go viral, and it doesn't go viral. Then you watch somebody just take his phone, put it in front of him, and talk rubbish, and then 12 million views, and then you're like, what's going on here? So your coconut is your coconut no matter where it falls. Just get ready to have fun with it. Get ready to work, but get ready to have fun. And don't time it. Your time is not the same as everybody's own. Just because in 3 months they had this, you can use that again to set a standard for yourself. But don't use that to judge yourself. That's the wrong thing.
Right.
Judging yourself, being negative about failures and whatever starts, but assessing yourself to push is better than assessing yourself to pull. Let the push come from you. If the stats pull you, you're going to get tired. You're going to just walk from here. Don't walk from there. That there's a difference to it. So walk to your coconut, pick it up. It is your coconut, and it won't fall if it is not right, because the connection is still very strong when it's not right. But once it ripens, the connection softens, and a simple shake will get the coconut falling. Every fruit will shake off if it is ready to be eaten. So if it has fallen for you, it is your coconut. No matter how far away it falls, even if it falls on your head and wounds you, it is your coconut. Just that's what life brings. Just
well, and you got to think about it too. No two
Yep.
coconuts will fall twice. It will only fall
Twice.
once. So whatever
Oh,
fell
wow.
is yours, because it's not going to fall
Absolutely.
for the next person. It's only going to fall for you.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, Pastor, I want to say thank you. It has been a huge pleasure of mine to have you on here on the playground. And at any time, you are always welcome back
Thank you very
because
much.
this has been real enjoyable.
It's been enjoyable talking with
So
you as well. I love what
if
you're
you want
doing.
to, if you want to tell the people where they can come see you online via your podcast or even your ministry, I'm going to put it up here on the screen if you want them to go to your YouTube channel. But you go ahead and take the floor and tell them where they can find you at, and
Yeah,
go from
yeah.
there.
My podcast is called Vantage Point with Pastor Henry. The website will be ready in a few days. It's going to be, like I said, it's a long name. So we're going to call it Vantage Point with Pastor Henry. And there's a second site, VPWPH VPWPH.online. And then Vantage Point with Pastor Henry.com. So those two places will lead you to the same podcast. On YouTube, we have a channel, Rema Gospel TV. And every once in a while, I put up something there. You can find my podcast on any platform, Spotify, Apple. You'll find it all there. We're working to, I'm a very versatile person. So you will see some of my seasons. I talk about Bible study. Right now, what we're doing is Bible study, and I'm answering questions, 101 questions that we've received. I'm answering them. Like, why was there destruction in Genesis chapter 1, verse 2? We're answering such questions. Was earth created in literal 6 days or spiritual 6 days? God said Adam would die if he ate the fruit. Where did he die? How? What kind of death was it? And all of that. He lived until he was 960 something years old. So we're answering some of these very deep questions in the Bible. There's 101 of them. I have 4 other pastors who joined me, and we discussed it. It's very fun. It's going to be coming out very soon. So that's what I'm doing now. And then I'm going to be talking about relationship. I'm going to be traveling to talk about my book. Don't chase me, choose me. And I'm speaking to both men and women to stop letting this art of the chase be the foundation for our relationship. 80% of the divorces come from the woman, 80%, and all of them were chased. So if chasing is the key to the amazing relationships we're supposed to have, then 80% of us are failing in it. And right now, 4 out of 10 Americans who were married are not enjoying their marriage. That's almost half. And then the other out of the other 6 that are enjoying their marriage, 2 of them have been remarried before. So only 4% of people have stayed in a relationship and are enjoying it. Only, I beg your pardon. That's crazy. In the church, the statistics are almost the same. So I'm going to be traveling and talking about that and changing a little bit of our mindset, you know, um, helping us choose how to find partners, how to find the people that will be in our lives and walk with us for the rest of our lives. And I show it from the scripture. The first thing I do is ask a question. Show me one place in the Bible, apart from Proverbs 18, where the Bible says the man is supposed to chase the woman. You don't find it anywhere. I've read the Bible through. You won't find it anywhere. It's a culture we've imbibed from somewhere, but we're going through this. So, HenryNwaneri.com. My books are on Amazon there, or you'll find me at booksbypastorhenry.com.
Okay, well, thank you, Pastor. And when that book comes out, you got to come back
It's
because
already out.
that right.
It's already out.
Oh, the relationship book is already out.
It's already out. It's live.
Oh man. Well, I'm gonna have to get you to send me the link for the book because we do on one of my podcasts. We do. They talk about relationships. You
Mm.
know, both sides, mainly from the male standpoint because there are a whole bunch of them out there from the lady standpoint. We talk about it from a male standpoint, far as fathers getting their kids or trying to fight for their children, and just the issues that they face when dating in today's time from that point of view. Me myself,
Yeah.
I'm a lifer. I've been married 28 years. I ain't going nowhere. I know what I got, and I've had it since 6th grade. So I'm in it for the long haul.
Let me give you a statistic that shocked me when I found it. It says that 70%, 70+% of men lose 70+% of the chase 5 years after marriage. So let me explain it to you. If there's a way you can measure the quality of or the quantity of the chase the man had when he was chasing the woman before they got married, 5 years after marriage, 70% of them have lost 70% of that chase. Wow.
That is wild.
that that one shocked you.
That is,
So you're
yeah,
in the
yeah.
30
You
percent
shocked
of
me.
men who
You can see it on my face. I was like, whoa, that's wild. That's wild. So now I'm gonna have to talk to the fellas on that on the podcast when they're talking about relationships. I'm gonna have to turn around and say, hey, did you guys see that episode I did with Pastor Henry? Did you hear what he said about the statistics on losing the chase after marriage
Mm.
or and before marriage? I'm gonna say, did y'all pay attention to it? And then, like I said before, I'm gonna have to go get that book because I think that book's gonna
You
play a
want me to
huge
give you
factor
another
too.
stat? Let me give you another stat that will
Sure.
try. 80% of women enjoy the chase 2 years after marriage. Do you get it? So you chase them and marry them, but then 2 years after the marriage is when they want to enjoy the chase. So all through the wedding, all through the chasing, it's 80% of women. That's not the peak of the enjoyment of the chase. It's 2 years after you've done the honeymoon, they've had a child. That's if technically, if you are supposed to time the chase, you're supposed to wait until they've had a child. Then you start the chase because if you do it
You
before, you
you
don't.
see in the chat right here, Ramona said, "I'm paying attention." So Ramona, I know you paying attention. These are some good stats. The pastor ain't playing. The pastor is not playing. Man, oh man! Like I said, I'm looking forward to your getting that copy of your book. You know, I'm even gonna lie, I am not a reader, so I'm gonna be looking for the digital version. So that way, when I'm sitting outside these conference rooms, I got something I want to hear versus something I don't want to hear.
I've got the audio
So
version coming out in a few days, so I'll send you the link. Don't worry, I'll get you a free copy of
yes,
it.
please do. And then, like I said, when you do, I'm gonna have you back on, and we can, after I go through it, we can talk about what you what you put down with them stats. Because, like I said, you just changed my whole look on my whole face with these stats you threw. I was shocked.
Yeah,
So,
that,
with that being
and
said,
the book, every chapter is full of stats. Every chapter, because that's the first thing I want to. I want. Here's why I went to stats. I wanted to prove that something is wrong with what we have. Something is real, and we are not seeing it. Something is really wrong with what we have. I'm sorry to take your time. I was sitting on a table. I was the only one not married on that table, and all the married men were looking at other women. All of them. I'm like, hello, hello. Didn't you all chased your wives before you married them? What's going on? You know, in men's circles, even in women's circles, you'd be shocked at how easily, you can tell a woman who is not being chased. Let me give you this. Why do you think there are married women today who still take selfies and do fish lips? I'm sorry, I don't mean to criticize anything.
no, you're good. She want that attention.
Attention. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's what it's about. It's about that 100% attention. It's an ego booster. It draws them in
Absolutely.
because look at it this way. As somebody who DJed at the strip club, fresh out of high school, right?
Mm.
I know this one girl that I went to school with. I never even knew she was a stripper. She sat right in class next, like 3 chairs over. She was fine. All of a sudden, I graduate. I get a job DJing at a strip club, and she working there. And I was like,
Wow.
I didn't know you worked here. She talking about I've been working here. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'm new.
Wow.
She talking about I know you knew. So it's wild, but it's the attention. It's the attention, the money. Because if you take those two out the equation, there is no time left for you.
Yeah.
99% of stuff that females do is for the attention. The eyelashes, the hair, and it might not be for the male attention, but it's still attention.
Yeah.
It's something that makes them feel good. It's like a dude, it's like a guy going to the gym. A guy that goes to the gym that gets all cut, buffed, and ripped. He ain't doing it just because he wants to go see how far he could push his muscles. In the beginning, he is. But after that, when them ladies start looking at him, start lusting over him, he going for a brand new reason. He got to keep looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger. He got to keep looking all greased up like a piece of fried chicken because he want that attention too. So it all boils down
Absolutely.
to both parties want attention for the same reason,
Mm,
no matter whether it's male or female. We
mm.
just do different things to get it.
Yeah.
So like I said, I'm looking forward to this book because this going to be interesting.
I think once I have the audio file, I'll send you a free copy. Don't worry about it.
Okay, and then like I said, I got to have you back on here because this gonna be awesome. Like I said, we got our first female viewer that was on here. Well, second female viewer. Sorry about that, Nicole. But our second female viewer that was on here, and Ramona said, "I'm paying attention." That let me know right there that right there we lit a match, and now it's burning.
Yep. Yep.
So I'm definitely looking forward to this. So with that being said, Pastor, thank you once again. Everybody,
Thank you very much.
this is the podcast playground where podcasters come to play. And I'm going to definitely tell y'all to go check out The Vantage Point. Okay? Go see the pastor. This book is coming out. Not the book, the audio version is coming out, but the book's already out. So y'all want to hit him up on YouTube. You want to hit him up on here. I'll get him the information and y'all guys can get the book. You got to read it. Because like I said, I'm not a reader, and no day did I ever say I want to get a book and read it unless it was something to do with a car or painting. And even then, I didn't want to read it. I wanted to look at the pictures. So you definitely got my interest. So with that being said, I'm going to say thank you all for watching and come back and see us on the podcast playground.